Representative Almeida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question for the chairwoman or the sponsor?
Chairwoman will yield. Is that correct, Chairwoman Williams? Will you yield?
Oh, yeah, I don't have a problem, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, proceed, Representative Almeida.
So, under the MBE, women,
Can you hold on back here, please? Thank you.
and then we talk about the 10% set aside. I don't know what the federal recognition of women is. Are we including white women? Are we giving, I mean, I got a problem with that because if I'm a minority-owned business, look at me. I'm a minority-owned business. Is white women in the federal guidelines under this definition?
First of all, Mr. Representative Almeida, a woman is a woman is a woman, 100%. So looking at you, I don't see that. I see a black man, handsome one at that. But at the federal language does not permit anyone to categorize anyone by race in the sense of, it's called unconstitutional for you to describe a black person, a Hispanic person, a Native American. It's not constitutional. I understand your point. This piece of legislation only speaks to women. And I think that I know where you're going with this, but I will leave that to you rather than me assuming and making a you-know-what out of myself. And I would rather not do that, but that is my explanation. It does include all women.
You know I'm thinking. You know I'm thinking. From what I remember for years, MBE, only in Rhode Island, only in Rhode Island does it include, and nobody wants to hear this, Portuguese. Only in Rhode Island we do this. I have nothing against white women, but when I see that 10% set aside, with great respect to you, madam, there are businesses that are owned by white males who will take a white woman and say, hey, look, I own a minority business. Under the MBE definition, according to across the street, they call it a Department of Administration, I call it dead on arrival, they have not given me the opportunity, or they have blocked me. Only once I was able to get it to finance many years ago, about what the definition is of MBE. If in fact, let's go black. It's a good enough bet on black, you can't go broke.
Well, I'm broke. And I'm multiracial.
With the black population in business at 10%, that women, because you're talking to a man who represents 4 daughters, but of course, they're black and they are Latino. But wouldn't that 10% be cut in who knows how much of a degree for a black-owned business to get some of this work to the state of Rhode Island? If I may. State of Rhode Island has a way of taking people of color and putting them in categories. But all of a sudden, in this bill, they're saying, everybody, we can all get along to be there. Well, that's not true. I'm very concerned about this bill.
What exactly are you concerned about? Exactly, be specific.
White women. And I think that this bill should be held. I think without further discussion by what I call true minority businesses, black, Latinos, Southeast Asians, Native Americans, they should have been here to testify. No fault of yours, fault of us. But they should have been here to testify on this. So I'm asking that, Mr. Speaker, I'm asking that this bill be held.
Mr. Speaker, I think there's a question that I request that I can't respond to. I think it was presented to you, sir.
Why don't we wait 1 second and let's hear from the leader. Hold. If we could just hold on for 1 second. Leader Shikachi.
Mr. Speaker, all this bill does is rely on the federal statute and asking, respectfully, as a House, we have very little control over the federal government here, and all it is asking DOA to recognize and follow the federal statute. So that's all that this does, and I can appreciate Representative Almeida's passions, long known on this subject, but I think Chairwoman Williams explained it, and therefore I think just based on that, all we are is asking Department of Administration to recognize a federal statute in a state, follow the federal law, then I don't see a big controversy, Representative.
Representative Almeida for the second and final time.
My final time.
If you want it now, you can. There's a few other lights. We can come back to you after, Representative. It's your choice.
I'll wait.
Thank you, Representative. Whip Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the representative is a little confused on the issue. This does not take away from the MBE program at all. In the state of Rhode Island and in the federal government, you have two portions of the minority program. You have an MBE and you have the WBE. Contractors have to have both. They have to meet the guideline to have minority contractors. They also have a guideline they have to meet with women-owned contractors. The state of Rhode Island has not done a great job in recognizing, and they're not quick on recognizing contractors who have already been certified by the federal government or by other states. So all this bill does is it mimics exactly what Chairwoman Williams did for the MBE contractors. It makes it easy for people who have already gone through the lengthy process to become a WBE contractor and to be certified by the federal government to become a WBE contractor certified in Rhode Island. It doesn't add anybody else who has not already previously been certified by the federal government. Very simple. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Whip. Representative Jacquard, Chairman Jacquard. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So what we learned here today was, or what we are learning here today was very well put by Whip Edwards, that there are two different designations. Apparently there is minority business enterprise and women's business enterprises recognized by the federal government. On March 26th, we passed Representative Williams' Bill 5461. Representative Almeida was the co-sponsor on that bill, and it recognized and it stated that any minority business enterprise, which I believe is what Representative Almeida is alluding to, currently certified by the U.S. Small Business Administration, shall be deemed certified by the Department of Administration as a minority business enterprise. So I think that Representative Williams' bill addresses what Representative Almeida is bringing up here today, and they're two different designations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairwoman Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did not want to get up and do this, but I have to, or else I would hate myself for this day, and it's still my birthday week. Let me give you an explanation. And this is to the point that Representative Almeida is making, and it's to correct Representative Edwards and Chairman Jacquard, and everyone who will benefit by the explanation of what is being interpreted, what is actually happening, and will continue to happen with this bill. Now, I voted for this in committee, absolutely. I sponsored the MBE bill, but the representative concern is when we're talking about WBE programs, yes, a white woman is in the same category, a protected class. And it's been a practice for years that companies, white companies, utilize their wives, their daughters, their girlfriends, their whatever, secretary, whatever, female, to be eligible to take part in minority business programs. Now, there's a 10% by law, state law, that is supposed to go to women of color, men of color, disadvantaged community or entities, 10%. So when we have the bill before us, and it now includes every woman, that 10% decreases for any woman of color, because surely individuals who have businesses and have a female in their lives that could, in fact, be put in front as a owner or lead partner of some sort, can benefit by these programs that a woman of color is entitled to apply and receive. So that 10% set aside that is for a person, a woman of color, now may become 1% that will eliminate any other numbers of women of color to take advantage. And that's what Representative Almeida is trying to convey here today. I don't have a problem with regards to every woman benefiting, because we are shortchanged as women altogether. But when you talk about women of color, we are even shortchanged. So I understand this point, I respect this point, and me standing up here explaining to you what it's really happening, what it really is a privilege to me. Because, yeah, I understand what you're saying, Representative Edwards, and I understand and I agree. However, I need for you all to hear and understand the real story and the real deal behind what Representative Almeida is trying to say. It is true. It is happening that 10% will become 1% or 0.5% for any woman of color. And that's why I had to, because if you don't know, you will continue to assume. I am a woman, and I am a woman of color, and when I have to talk and tell the truth so that people will become educated of what it's like and what the real deal is at this side of the aisle, I have to do it. I have a responsibility to educate you about the hardship that individuals face, of color or non-color, but just to understand the process that is before us. It's not that we don't want to, it's because there's a big, huge difference. I thank you very much.
Representative Rangland-Vasson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the sponsor, the chairwoman, please.
The sponsor will yield. Whip Edwards.
Thank you. There is currently a 10% set aside. What percentage of that is the state currently abiding by that 10% set aside?
Well, right now, I'm doing a project in Providence. We have a 10% MBE portion. We have a 5% WBE portion. These are not exclusive of each other. They are in addition. So overall, we would have to have 15%, 10% MBE and 5% WBE. participation.
So,
This does not exclude anything from the MBE market. If you have a woman-owned company, they have to meet it on their own criteria as a woman-owned company. It doesn't preclude an MBE from being included. The MBE portion is set aside for its own percentage.
so my understanding is that that 10% is not the MBE and the WB. There's not even a 10%. Black and minority-owned businesses, from data that's shown, it's not even getting the 10%. Would that be correct?
I know in the projects I've worked on in the state of Rhode Island, we've always met our MBE and WB requirements.
Is there any way you could get that information for us so that we know?
No, you would not be able to. It's all confidential. It's held by the state or by the city entity. You
No,
could get
not
it from them.
names, not names, just data, raw data. Because I know it's available.
Yeah, it can be acquired, but it's not something I would be able to get for you. But I have worked on numerous projects in the state, and we've always met our own requirements.
So Rhode Islanders are not able to get that number?
The information is available, Representative. You could call the MBE, the state MBE office. They should be able to give it to you.
Okay. My other question is, what is the number of black women that own businesses?
I have no idea.
That data would be really instructive, I think. Is there any way you can get that data, please?
Huh? You should be able to get that information online.
Is there any way you could provide that information before we vote?
I'm sure you could go online, Representative, and find the information just as quickly as I can.
That's clever. Do we know the breakdown of black women and white women who get these contracts and own businesses?
I have no idea. What I put this bill in for, Representative, is because we have women-owned companies who are coming into... I'll defer to the chair.
Chairwoman Williams.
Thank you, Representative Marcia Wrangling Vessel. That information, you can obtain all of those questions that you would like to know with reference to women of color, minority, the percentage and all that from the Diversity Office of the state, which Cheryl Burrell runs. She has all that statistic pertaining to individuals of color, if you would like to get that information.
Thank you. I find it troubling, though, that those numbers are not readily available, so we can all make...
But they are readily available. They are, and they've been.
I find it troubling that I can't get the questions answered that I have to ask.
By whom?
The sponsor.
All right. I think I'm going to intercede right now. You're asking questions that are, quite frankly, not relevant to the bill. So to suggest that someone is not prepared to give you information, I expect that he's not prepared to give you information because that's not relevant to the legislation that's before this body, Representative Wrangling Vassal. So if you want to proceed with something, proceed. The whip is no longer yielding to you. Proceed.
Respectfully, those numbers are important to my community. And that's why I am asking those questions, because they are not in the room to ask those questions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I would say that is extraordinarily important to your community and to all Rhode Islanders, and everybody had the same opportunity to do that research. It's not relevant to the bill, so I don't expect Whip Edwards would have done the research, and it's not fair to expect him to have those numbers at his fingertips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Yuchi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. It's ironic we're debating this bill, and Mark Haywood's here from the SBA today, so he's probably chomping at the bit to answer any one of these questions. So, fearful of his critique after this, the intent of this bill is if you go back to the chapter and you look at Title 37, Chapter 14.1, already women-owned businesses And minority-owned businesses are in the section. It's already in the statute. The set-asides are there. The issue is the federal government has a process by which you go through and you get certified. The state has its own process. So you have to go through a double process to get certified in order to be certified to get the set-aside work. The intent of this bill, in the previous bill by Chairwoman Williams, was to say if you already have the federal for either one, we automatically accept that so these businesses don't have to go through a redundant process. That's all this does. It doesn't change the numbers. It doesn't add anything. All it does is give people, makes it easier for them once they've gotten this and less bureaucratic. That's all this bill does. So with that, I ask everyone to support this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Ucci. Representative Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just have a suggestion, Mr. Speaker. And my suggestion is when we're talking about minority women, don't referring only to black women, because in minority world we have Asian women, Latino women, Native Indian, and we have disabled women who has businesses. Just as a suggestion, Mr. Speaker, because I don't want the conversation that the viewers are watching, they feel like they excluded to the conversation. And secondly, I'm the director of MBE WBE for the City of Providence, and my understanding is that the state of Rhode Island has only 10% for minority business, including minority and women, and the City of Providence has 20%, 10% for minority business, and 10% for women business. And the bill, what the bill does, as Uchi explained, is nothing to be with business percentage or anything. It's just recognizing the certification, which is very important in order to cities and towns apply the formula and including a small business and minority. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Diaz. There are no other lights. Clerk, unlock the machine. All in favor, please. Wait, hold on. Clear the board. Clear the board. Your light was not on when I said it, but it came on late. We want to hear from you, Representative Almeida. Representative Almeida.
I should have stood up too quick. My back is killing me.
And take all the time you need. Proceed.
Thank you for your patience and understanding, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad I brought this question up for you all to discuss. I hear what my good brother Uchi had just said, and actually I agree with him. I actually agree with the chairman, and I agree with Rep. Edwards. But there's something, and Representative Anastasia. Diaz. It's not my day. The fact remains one particular issue or couple, and every bill that we do on this floor, we break it down in wording. I have never seen a bill come up here where it's not identified on whatever the particular issue is, and it goes further than what this particular bill has done. I have a little issue with my good brother Uch and everybody else that's up here. Now, I don't want you all to think I'm George Jefferson or something. But in fact, there's an issue. And I brought it because I know who's listening. I hope the governor's listening. Because when it comes to minority issues in the business community, she blows us off. When I come to minority issues over at DOA, I got blown away. And I have told each and every one of you, I hate that word minority, because when you check the dictionary, it means less than, and I'll be damned if I'm less than anybody in this room. Women and the moves that some of the big companies in this state do to keep the minority representation in their companies. You all know, maybe not the new people that have been here, you all know for years I've been arguing about this word, minority business, MBE. I'll deal with it. I have to deal with it. But how come, as big as this little state is, we don't seem to have enough minority enterprises, enough businesses here? Doesn't that make you wonder? Doesn't that make you think? Why? because some of the big businesses in this state takes a bill like this and whitewashes it. Now, probably putting a nail in my own coffin as I try to make a living, but I got a bad feeling about anybody trying to knock me out the park. I know where this bill's gonna go, but I got what I wanted. I got you all to talk about it. I got that woman across the hall over there to listen to what I got to say. I got the Department of Dead on Arrival, DOA, over there to listen. This is a big issue. The federal government, from what I understand and have read, whether it's a black radio station, a Spanish radio station, but they have talked about putting more money into communication. And how the federal government listed, they actually put the word African American, because you know I'm not politically correct. I'm still going to say black. They're going to mention Latinos. Uncle Sam, our uncle, I guess we're his nieces and nephews. Could we not adhere to what he's saying and make it bend and fit the great state of Rhode Island? Mr. Speaker, I appreciate you allowing me to speak a second time, but I'm really concerned about a word that I've been fighting for years up here. I want economic empowerment. I want to be involved in the system that makes this state a great state. I want black and Latino and Southeast Asians and Native American businesses to get not the crumbs, not a piece of the pie, but to actually be part of this pie. I was gonna say forget it, try to hold it, ain't gonna go nowhere. I'm not gonna do that. I understand everybody up here, but do you understand the plight that I bring to this state? I ask that you vote this bill down, and I thank you.
There are no other lights. Clerk, unlock the machine. All in favor, please vote green. Those opposed, red. Clerk, lock the machine. We have 68 in favor, 3 opposed. The act prevails. Next item.